Picture it. A damp morning, breath visible in the cold air, and a queue of schoolchildren shifting from foot to foot, collars turned up against the chill. Then, faint at first, the low growl of a diesel engine echoing through the fog. That sound meant everything. The number 37 was coming. You didn't check a phone app or tap a card. You listened. You knew. For so many of us, the daily bus wasn't just a way to get from A to B. It was a heartbeat in the rhythm of our day. The same faces, the same conductor's nod, the same upstairs seat if you were lucky. These weren't random journeys. They were rituals. And like all good rituals, they anchored us. In time, in place, and in memory. Back in the 1950s and 60s, buses weren't sleek or silent. They were solid, stubborn beasts of steel and rivets. Climbing aboard a red Routemaster felt like boarding a battleship. You could hear the hiss of the brakes, feel the rattle beneath your feet, and smell the mix of warm engine oil and worn leather seats. Every journey felt sturdy, grounded, like the bus might outlive the passengers. These machines weren't churned out cheaply. They were hand-built in British factories, bolted together with craftsmanship and pride. The green country buses with their split windscreens and sliding doors had their own charm too. Rural, dependable, and slightly slower, as if they knew there was no need to rush. And of course, there was the crew. A driver focused on the road, and a conductor in a crisp Navy uniform swinging a chunky ticket machine. You didn't just get on a bus. You were greeted, ticketed, and remembered. Here's something most have forgotten. Buses back then had personality. And that personality became part of the towns and lives they served. If you want to know what British life really looked like back then, don't go to the grand halls or city squares. Go to the bus stop. That's where everything happened. Neighbors chatted while waiting, umbrellas tapping impatient rhythms. Teenagers stood a little apart, pretending not to care, hearts pounding as a crush approached. Grands compared shopping lists and biscuit prices. And kids, always restless, balanced on curbs or skipped in circles. Once on board, the bus itself became a moving community. The back seat was for the bold, where whispered secrets and harmless dares were traded. Middle rows were reserved for mums with prams, pensioners with shopping trolleys, and the odd chatterbox eager to strike up conversation. Conductors didn't just punch tickets. They knew names, asked after families, and kept a quiet eye on trouble. A ride into town wasn't just functional, it was an event. Whether to Woolworths, the market, or the Saturday Picture House, that ride meant freedom. You saw faces, heard stories, caught snippets of lives not your own. Today, we stare at screens and ride in silence. But back then, the bus stop was where life gathered. Ordinary, vibrant, and unforgettable. Before package holidays and budget airlines, a proper day out meant piling onto a coach or double-decker, flask in hand, and sandwiches tightly wrapped in foil. The windows barely opened, the air was thick with boiled sweets and sun cream, and the journey itself was half the fun. Those buses rumbled their way to British seaside towns, Blackpool, Margate, Scarborough, destinations that felt like magic words. Children pressed their faces to the glass, spotting cows in fields and waving at other coaches. Parents dozed. Teenagers flirted over crossword puzzles. And somewhere, someone always started a song. 10 green bottles, or She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain. There were no mobile phones, no GPS, just thermos tea, soggy cheese and pickle sandwiches, and that delicious anticipation of salt air and seagulls. Even if it rained, and it often did, the day still felt like an escape. A bucket, a spade, and a soggy chip cone were enough. These day trips opened up the country for working-class families. A ride on that bus meant new sights, new smells, and stories to tell at school the next day. It wasn't glamorous, but it was unforgettable. And for many, it was freedom on 4 wheels. By the time the 1980s rolled in, something subtle but significant began to shift. The friendly clatter of the conductor's machine faded. One by one, the navy-capped staff disappeared, replaced by solitary drivers behind glass screens. No more banter, no more bell cords tugged with a grin, just silence and signs. Deregulation swept through the country, bringing bright new liveries, yellow, orange, blue, but draining the soul from the system. Routes were chopped or merged. Timetables changed overnight. Suddenly, buses weren't built for people. They were run for profit. Where once you'd catch the number 9 without a second thought, now you needed a leaflet, a map, and exact change. And with every cut, something else slipped away. The sense of community that lived on buses, the eye contact, the conversations, the care, slowly vanished. We didn't just lose conductors, we lost connection. Transport became transaction. What happened on the buses mirrored what happened across Britain. Systems got faster, sleeker, and more efficient, but colder. We moved forward, yes, but at what cost? Because once the human part went missing, so did the magic. But do you remember the feel of a vinyl seat warmed by the afternoon sun? The faint rattle of the window pane when the bus idled at the lights? That tiny thrill of pulling the bell cord, once, not twice, and hearing the soft ding echo down the aisle? Do you remember slipping your paper ticket into your sock so it wouldn't get lost? Or watching it curl in your hand as the conductor tore it with that satisfying snick? The smell of damp coats and wet leaves in winter? Or the giddy breeze of an open top deck in summer, hair whipping, eyes watering, not caring one bit? These aren't memories you can Google. They live in your senses, tucked deep into the folds of your growing up. 1,000 little moments that made something as ordinary as catching the bus feel like life was happening right there. No matter where you went, to school, the seaside, or just the shops, the journey itself was part of your story. It's strange, isn't it? How something so routine could become so unforgettable. And maybe that's the point. We didn't realize it then, but the buses weren't just taking us places. They were taking us through time. Today's buses glide along with quiet engines, contactless taps, and digital displays. They're efficient, climate-controlled, and connected to apps that tell you when they'll arrive to the second. But for all their modern comforts, something's missing. There's less chatter now. No familiar conductor. No slow climb up the stairs to claim your favorite seat. It's quicker, cleaner, but lonelier. This isn't a complaint. It's a reflection. The past isn't better, just different. But within that difference lived a kind of everyday magic we didn't know we'd miss. Because back then, we didn't just ride the buses. They carried our groceries. They carried our friendships. They carried our lives.